Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session of Mortician's Journal. The 7th, Session 0, which is a funny sentence to say. This is our second to last Session 0, and I am very, very excited to get into it. Hello, Derek.
No.
Oh, I need to change your Fugi. Hold on.
No more bulb? No.
I'm just going to keep it Wolfram because I think doing the
Yeah,
full
the whole
name
name
on
is
the name
definitely
tag.
100% not necessary.
Yeah. Well, if we're all good to go, then I guess it's time to get rolling. You feel an immense amount of pressure, accompanied by a chill that courses through your body. You look over to your side in a panic to see a figure, no, your professor, with their hand outstretched. A barely visible straight face as the color drains from your vision. You fall to your knees as vitality leaves your body. It's terribly hard to breathe. A ringing and pounding in your ears continues to drum as your hands hit the ground. Your lungs can't accept another breath. Your body hits the floor. It's cold. Really cold. Then suddenly, nothing. You wait what feels to be years, and then you start to regain some kind of consciousness. The hollow whistling of wind drives your eyes slowly open. In front of you, an ornate Gothic palace looms, its front gate agape. Around you, in eerie, inky blackness. You turn around to see an eerie trail of light that stems from you, meandering off into the void. Looking down at your hands, you see that they're outlined in a pale green glow. Would you like to roll any sort of recall knowledge to see if you can recognize the sort of place that you found yourself in?
Absolutely. I think this would be definitely something that Wolfram would be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But just to make sure, and let's see if I like the dice telling the story, what kind of check would you like for that? Religion?
Yeah.
Can I use my lore skill?
That being?
Boneyard.
Yes. Yes, you may. Never having seen, of course, any sort of pictures, just vague descriptions and depictions of what could be the Boneyard, you recognize the place that you're in from the studies you've done. What do you do?
I recognize the place as
As the Boneyard.
Oh, cool. How did I get here? Are there any souls around me?
Strangely
alone?
enough, no. And I will say with your role there, you know that this is the place where souls are generally, they line up to be judged and sent to their respective resting grounds. So it's strange to be the only one.
That is very weird. I will head towards the open gate.
All right. You wander up to the gate, and as you take your steps, you notice that with every step you take, no sound comes from your footsteps or your movements. It is eerily quiet as you make your way to the gate. Do you step in?
Absolutely.
You begin to make careful steps around the halls of this palace. That same feeling of emptiness sort of looms about as you stride through.
Is there any sort of feeling like there's a path, or is it just kind of like a presented with an abandoned palace?
Mostly just presented with an abandoned palace. You can tell that there is, from the gate, there is one large main hall that leads to a closed door at the end of it. A large, ornate, sort of closed door, and sort of branching hallways that lead off either side in this sort of circular courtyard.
I want to look up. What do I see above me in the distance, at the ends of the wherever we are?
Above you, you see lights. They aren't quite like stars. They're a little bit different in the way that they sort of float around and not necessarily like shine, but they let off a sort of pale light as they meander about the skies above, surrounded in that same sort of pitch black void.
I think Wolfram would begin investigating the various rooms. Not so much wandering around the palace grounds, but deliberately looking for signs of anyone else.
Yeah.
Being alone here is very atypical.
You wander around and continue to sort of find very little sign of other people. You would expect in, a place this large, even without it being what you think it is, for there to be at least someone around, whether they are, good, evil, somewhat neutral, at least somebody running the place. But it just seems empty. You manage to find a room, though, and after cracking it open, there is somebody here. They don't seem to be conscious, but they wear a mask, much like a sort of plague doctor's mask, as they lay collapsed in sort of the middle of the room. They do have a desk, and there's various bookshelves and other stuff in here, but they just lay unconscious. What would you like to do?
A desk and bookshelf. So does it seem like an administrative sort of room, or like a library, or a clerical sort of room?
Much more administrative.
How large is the individual?
I would say probably around the ballpark of 6 foot tall, just by sort of eyeballing them.
Yeah. I think first thing would do as I approach the individual, slowly, cautiously call out to them. Hello?
No answer.
And I'll continue walking up and say, are you okay? Am I okay? Do you know what's going on here? Could I investigate the if there remains no reply, investigate the person?
Yes, you may.
What could I do to do that?
If
I
you
imagine
would,
a perception check.
Yeah, there's a couple options. There be a perception check. If you think something might be wrong with them, of course, you could do a recall knowledge medicine as you sort of check them over. Anything that you would think to do with what Wolfram knows, like what he's sort of known to do or known to, like if you wanted to
The
use your
first thing that I would do is recall knowledge, try to think if this is perhaps an attendant of I assume we're in the boneyard. I assume this is the domain of Pharasma, so of the goddess Pharasma. So I would probably want to think, does this align with what I think a what is it? What is the thing called? A proto Praetorian? Is that what it's called? I can't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
I
know what
guess
you're
we'll
talking
recall
about.
knowledge and we'll find out if I know what I'm talking about. How's
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
Do you think boneyard or religion would be more fitting? I assume the lore skill would be a lower DC, but I
Yeah.
don't know if boneyard is fitting.
Generally speaking, I would say boneyard is still fitting. I mean, you're
Okay,
still,
here.
yeah. You recognize based on the sort of mask that this person wears and the sort of encompassing clothing that hides their identity as a psychopomp, which is one of the guardians and shepherds of the dead who work under Pharasma.
I go up to the psychopomp and I touch their shoulder. Are they like bipedal like a person?
Yes.
Yeah, their shoulder and shake them lightly, trying to see if they'll wake up. This could be a recall knowledge medicine if you think it would apply, if nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you could probably roll that. I will say, just from shaking them, you still get no response.
Okay.
Along with your shake, sort of putting your ear up to the mask and sort of maybe checking a pulse, just sort of regular things that you would do just to make sure somebody is okay. You do notice that they are not dead. There are signs of life. A very slight, shallow breath. No signs of injury. There are no wounds that can be seen, just sort of surface level. No tears in the clothing other than what it looks like might have happened from them just falling. They are simply unconscious.
It seems that they're just lacking the essence, the strength, the mojo to be more than asleep. Okay. I will leave this individual, leave this psychopomp. Have I investigated have I seen anything that would resemble a throne room?
There was the large door at the end of the sort of main hall that is your best sort of sign for what you're looking for.
So not yet. Okay, I will head towards that large door.
As you walk down this large sort of hallway, there are openings to the sides that lead to the courtyard on either side. And you can see within this courtyard there are several people who have collapsed. You can see them sort of out in the midst of the courtyard. There are also benches and stuff like that where based on, I can sort of give you this based on the rolls that you've gotten so far for your boneyard knowledge. They would usually observe the souls coming into the boneyard and
the procession.
yeah, make sure that they are going in the right direction and stay in the line as they wait to go into the throne room. And it is on this walk to the throne room that you, for the first time since being here, start to hear something other than the low, hollow wind that's blowing through this place. You start to hear the sounds of some kind of billowing smoke from behind you.
I think, considering that the psychopomps and the other residents of the boneyard are supposed to be not only keeping the procession in line, meaning making sure that souls like mine go the right direction, but also keeping us safe, and the fact that they're no longer active, and hearing this sound behind me, I think Wolfram would be very on edge and like aim to retreat from the sound and obviously throw a look over his shoulder to see what it is.
You turn around to see a figure start to form out of this dark, velvety smoke. A hand from the midst of it starts to reach out towards you.
Is there any sort of, so I cannot make out who what this is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Not without um I know that spiral patterns are characteristic of Pharasma. Is there any sort of indication in like the smoke or like sort of a vortex of the mist or anything that this would be anything related to her or her servants?
Yes, in fact. You notice that the sort of patterns of the smoke and how it's appearing is sort of in these several spiral patterns as these cloud of smoke forms.
I think based on that, despite having just been lurching away in sort of fear, Wolfram will take the hand that has been offered to him.
You feel a very real touch, which you haven't really felt since getting here. And then suddenly it starts to pull you forwards towards the gate, the gate that you came in. And you hear a voice whisper from the cloud, "You don't belong here yet." And you are pulled towards this gate at a frightening speed. And just as you are about to get thrown out the gate, your eyes shoot open. Your head is pounding. You look around and you recognize your own room. Your clothes are hung out for the day, but unusually flowers sit upon your nightstand. Lilies. Clasping at your head, you try to recall information about what got you here. Last you remember, your master had been experimenting. They've been somewhat crazed as of late. Researching an earthquake that had taken place over 2 years ago at this point, with the timing loosely lining up with the church losing their connection to the Lady of Graves. In your own time, you've been working on your own project, an independent study of Pharasman theology. The bones land in a spiral. You get up, despite this pounding headache, and dress yourself. Would you like to describe your character?
Sure. As he finishes getting dressed, he approaches a small mirror hanging on the wall. It's quite a lavish thing for one of his social standing to have. And he looks at himself, and he sees his eyes are the first thing that he notices. They've changed. His eyes used to be blue, a soft, sort of pale blue, like that of a spectral wisp. But now his eyes are so light that until he comes closer, he barely even notices his own irises, as if the sort of gray-white palette is uniform throughout his entire eyeball instead of terminating where the color used to be. His skin, previously, well, a little sickly, let's be real, but previously having some color, now appears so bleached and glows softly in the gentle light with a ghostly pallor that he scarcely recognizes himself. He looks upon his scar that he got, his sword-delivered scar on his cheek, the iconic mark of freshman status here at the University of Lepidstadt. He grasps at his wavy black hair with his hands and ties it into a short ponytail so that the hair that's black as the darkest night sky can be kept away from his eyes. That way his eyes can dart around, analyzing their surroundings quickly and efficiently. His clothes are clean and well kept, but still rather simple when compared to those of his intellectual contemporaries here at the university. He has adopted a smooth black tunic beneath a rough but durable dark gray cloak. The shell of a nautilus, iconic for its spiral pattern, is held with a silver chain and adorned completely around his neck. This is the single most valuable item that Wolfram has, a mark of his devotion for his goddess Pharasma. He looks around the room, curious how much time has passed, who has left these lilies, what day it is, what time it is, what happened to him. He looks down at his hands. He grows in fear of the lack of color, and cautiously, slowly approaches the window, which has been so far shielded by some rough drapes, and slowly, afraid that his wildest nightmares might be true, pulls the curtain open to let in the light.
You feel this light. It doesn't burn you, but your senses numbed to most other things. You feel a tingling from the sun that you wouldn't feel, that you hadn't felt before.
Does it hurt? This is what he wants
It's
to know.
pins and needles.
Pins and needles. He rushes back to the mirror, puts his face right up against it, and with his fingers pulls up his top lip. He looks at his canines. They have been elongated. He sits down on his bed and begins to contemplate what this all means, what the signs are telling him. As he knows, hell, everybody in Ustalov knows of the vampires. But the fact is, he did not perish in the light. In fact, here he still is. And he died, but he's still here. So how could he be? Oh, what could he be?
As Wolfram contemplates this and sort of gets farther and farther into thought about it, you notice the vase of lilies placed beside your bed. It falls to the ground and shatters, unprompted.
He looks at the vase. Where was it on the table? Was it sitting in the middle? Was it propped up on the edge? Could this have happened by any other means? He begins to, surprisingly to himself, calculate the forces that would have affected it.
As you're sort of getting deeper and deeper into thought about this, one thing to another, there is like a slight rattling in the room as the window beside you starts to shake.
Is it unique to the window or is it the wall?
It is unique to the window, to the sort of glass.
Uh, Wolfram walks over to the window and places his hand upon it and begins to try and sense the trembling.
The closer you focus in on this window, the more it starts to sort of vibrate and shake intensely until a loud crack as it shatters in front of you. And with that, you hear footsteps coming down the hall outside your room.
It shattered almost as if he had a feeling that something might happen with it. He will turn his focus to the footsteps as they approach, crouch down and place his hand on the floor, attempting to sense.
You
Why can
hear
I feel this?
a
Why can I perceive this?
you hear a knock at the door. Wolfram, have you awoken?
Whose voice is it? Do I recognize it?
A voice you recognize. Very, very much recognize. It is the voice of your master.
Ah, Professor Malinowski. Wolfram quickly stands up, almost at attention, and brushes himself off, and closes the drapes, and with his boot brushes the glass beneath the drapes. Yes, sir. I'll be right out. And he approaches the door.
Opening the door, you see Malinowski in front of you, and he is sort of looking down at you with a wide grin. Not as much happy as like a very calculated grin. He says, "Finally, it seems that things have all worked out. Come with me."
What do you mean worked out as he begins following?
Do you remember anything about what happened before you went to sleep? He's choosing his words quite carefully.
Before? Like, immediately, sir?
Yes.
Wolfram thinks back, and as he understands it, asphyxiation. Was no longer able to breathe.
Precisely. You, and as you guys reach a sort of living room, he takes a seat and sort of motions to a chair across the room for you to sit in. And
He takes a seat and gazes at his master, who's much larger and more wise in his appearance. And?
well, the man Wolfram von Morke is no longer with us.
I'm sorry, Wolfram von Mortse is right here.
He smiles and says, "Did you notice the lilies beside your bed?
What of them?
Those were a gift from the church you came from, the Phrasman Church. They wanted to show mourn for your passing."
Well, sir, it seems the lilies were premature.
Ah, but for all intents and purposes, you've died. I'm sure you've noticed the paler skin, the extended canines, your eyes. Surely they were hard to miss.
Wolfram puts his hand up to his forehead and begins scratching it. How do you know about the canines, sir?
Well, you haven't grown to be able to hide them. After all, you've certainly just got them. He smiles wider and says, "But don't you understand what this means?"
That I'm an abomination?
No. Something more important than that. You had a contract with the church that you were to go back and become a priest after your study here.
I'm sure I could still fulfill it, right?
Well, there's no need to now. Do you remember what that contract said?
I would willingly attend this university on behalf of the Phrasman Church, sponsored by my old deacon Akeem and you yourself, on the grounds that when I complete my education, I return to Morse to receive the deacon's job. How has that changed?
Well, should you die, you would be released from that contract. And he takes a piece of paper from his coat pocket, and you see it float through the air over towards you and land in your lap. Opening it and looking through it, you recognize this to be that contract, and in the subtext of it, it reads, should you die, you will be released from any of the binding parts of the contract.
Does that also release me from the promise of employment, sir?
Well, I'm sure you will be happy enough to be studying under me, or working for me, by that matter.
Well, the contract, master, is what funded me to study under you. If I'm no longer bound by it, then I'm no longer protected by it.
Then how would you like working for me? Directly.
What do you mean? And he kind of sits a little bit more relaxed backwards.
A proposition of sorts. There are answers deep below the surface that I'm going to have a hard time getting to due to my current duties, and so it would be wonderful to have an assistant to go explore these for me. And while I'm sure you're wondering how this has to do with your personal project, through my research I've figured out it has to do with the absence of the Lady of Graves.
He grabs that and holds the shell at his neck. So, what specifically are you proposing then, Professor? That I adventure on your behalf into, what did you say, the underground?
I'm not sure if you're one to listen to rumors, but have you heard a place called Martyr's Hollow in your research?
Not specifically, sir. I mean, of course, I've recognized the name, but none of my studies have brought me to it.
He stands and starts to sort of slowly pace. An island appearing from seemingly nowhere just south of Aspo Bay, with a large crater in the midst of it, comparable to the World Wound, which is formed over centuries, if not longer. All of that appearing within days, weeks, a month, that now has adventurers flocking over to it in search of treasure or whatnot. But how strange of it to appear within weeks of Lady Pharasma no longer hearing our call.
I mean, I find it strange, yes, but I don't find it to be correlated. I suppose that's why you're intending to send me.
He nods.
Is that right?
Such phenomena happening so close together is likely to have some sort of connection. If not, then, well, I will continue researching elsewhere. However, I can't help but shake the feeling that they are at least somewhat connected, and his pacing becomes a little bit quicker. With your newfound freedom, it wouldn't be hard at all to get you down there and looking around for clues or answers, and I'm sure there are plenty of answers to be had. What do you say?
Would this contribute to my education here? I'm quite enjoying learning from you, of course, Master, but also from the other faculty members. Never known so much, learned so much in such a short amount of time. Hate to abandon this journey I've begun.
Well, don't think of it as abandoning it. You're simply extending your research. There is much, much more to be discovered if you're in the pursuit of knowledge, especially from a phenomenon such as this. And if there are connections to your current research, then all the better. On top of this, I'm sure you've noticed other differences I heard the crashing and cracking in your room.
You believe that this is related to the disappearance of the lady?
Possibly. If you would like, I could take some time before sending you off to teach you what you need to know about your newfound body.
My body. How could you know anything more than I do about my body?
He gives a small sigh and he takes a finger to the side of his mouth and like pulls back the side of his mouth, and you see his canines, which are usually a sort of normal shape and size, grow before your eyes into the same sharp, elongated teeth that you now have. You,
Wolfram kind of stares, not quite in horror, but not quite in awe.
I've lived long, which is where I've gotten my knowledge from, my wisdom over the days. See it not as a curse, but a blessing.
What sort of blessings could this be?
Well,
After all, I we know that vampires are surely evil. And he kind of like flinches just slightly after having said that out loud.
well, Wolfram, do you think you yourself are evil?
Certainly not good. I mean, I suppose I could always take my own life. That would be probably the best, the most good I could do, right?
Hasty and young as ever. Before seeing what I am now, what were your thoughts of me before?
What do you mean? You've always been good. Kind of like narrows his eyes. To me, sir?
And does being a monster such as this change that? Does that change the past where I have been good to you and helped you study, helped fund your tuition here at the university?
N not to me, but why do you care so much then about Pharasma? After all, what we are, what we've become, what I've become is an abomination in her sights.
Oh, but that's where I'm most curious. You see, why does the Lady of Graves consider us to be abominations? Even though she surely despises what I am and who I am, it just makes me ever more curious about her.
Sir?
I am sure your love for the church and for the goddess herself has not waned over the night.
No, my lord.
Well, then do you plan to stop your study of her? Of the boneyard? Of the afterlife?
Not as of yet. No. Even if I'm not permitted to continue here in Lepidstadt. If I'm being honest, sir, I suppose I would still continue my research any way I could.
Then now you have plenty of time.
Then perhaps I can lead others to that life which I myself have been denied.
He nods. This must be a lot, and so I will give you some time to make up your mind of what you want to do from here. There are certainly more options, as freedom comes with more decisions, more choices that you can make. Give it some time, and we will discuss this tomorrow. And with that, he stands and walks off to his study. Give me a look into sort of Wolfram's brain over the next sort of day as you contemplate your options.
The first and primary thing is his pursuit of knowledge, of understanding. The question is, would he be permitted to stay here at the university? His family has no money to support him. In fact, even if they did, they are not on grounds such that they would be willing to do so. And the contract that protected him financially has been terminated. So, without securing some sort of benefactor or patron or a living in his own right. Further study here is out of the question. Now he's also curious, remembering what he experienced in the boneyard, because surely that wasn't just a dream. After all, it felt real, it appeared real, it left a mark that he can feel inside of him. Or rather, it left a mark that eliminated feelings of life that he had before. So what to do that? He has a lead. His master has given him a lead, the so-called Martyr's Hollow. I suppose he might begin, if he's taking a few days to recuperate, rest his body and his mind, and determine his next course of action before he's booted from the university for having not paid for his room and education. Would take some time to investigate one of the libraries for information about not just the Hollow, but any sort of journals or documentation of the disappearance of Pharasma and the appearance of the Hollow.
Okay.
Can I spend some? Are we mechanically taking some downtime to do stuff?
Yeah, an ounce of downtime.
Can I spend some time investigating then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I would like to investigate those things, the disappearance of Pharasma here, and like which must be correlated with the lack of souls that I saw there in the boneyard. But second thing that he'd like to investigate is the Martyr's Hollow itself. After all, he heard that it's in he said the Aspo Bay,
Yes.
which
The
is
south
what,
of the
southwest of Onderon, I
Yes,
believe.
it is in the midst of the inner sea, just south of Aspo Bay.
Right in the heart of civilization. Awesome. Well, the last time that an island appeared, maybe that anything appeared like that in the inner sea on this sort of scale, it was the then living god Erodin, who raised the Isle of Kortos, which the city of Absalom, the basically city of the world, now rests from the inner sea, the floor of the inner sea up, well, before he died. So my fear, Wolfram's fear, is that his lady is dying, and in her final sort of act after bringing him back was to raise the isle. But the timing doesn't quite fit. So those are the things that he'd like to investigate. The isle, is Martyr's Hall the island or the hole?
Sort of both. You figure out in your perusings that they both share the same name as the first sort of layers of the crater. They take up most of the island, being about 55 miles across at like the largest ends.
Okay. What about any sort of correlation between the time or the circumstances surrounding Phrasma's disappearance? What can I find with that? And for either of these things, do you want me to roll?
Yeah. I will let you decide what you want to roll for recall knowledge, and I will give you correlating information based on what you rolled.
Okay. Here's a society. I'd like to investigate the Hollow. Spend some time reading or talking to. Probably, honestly, he'd definitely not go to his classmates or anything. So this would be either reading or like a professor.
Okay. I will say that you largely have access to a decent portion of this information, as your master has been researching a lot about Martyr's Hollow. So there are resources close by and within access without you having to sort of reveal yourself to others.
What sort of society exists around it? What's the deal with it? Does anybody have any theories about why it's here? And more importantly, what sort of, since it's also society related, how might I get there if Wolfram chose to set out for that?
You're able to learn some pretty surface level information about it, but nothing quite deeper than that. You learned that has developed a sort of gold rush town amidst it. as has been mentioned before, like adventurers have sort of flocked to it in their desire to research it and or find treasure within it. There are a cavalcade of rumors sort of about it, which is probably what makes it the hardest to parse any information, because everybody is saying sort of something different about it. Some people say that, at the bottom lies treasure. Other people say that the hollow grants wishes, with nothing to sort of go off of other than sort of baseless rumor. But because of all of this, adventurers have flocked to it. And because adventurers have flocked to it, merchants have taken interest and moved in, sort of in that area. Inns, taverns, some farms have sort of cropped up in the area.
Okay.
So on and so forth. That has just sort of caused this place to explode in the 2 years that it's been there.
But no idea why it's here.
Yeah.
Only theories on what it does. Are these from anyone of academic credibility? Or are they simply that, rumors?
They are mostly that, rumors. You find like hints of conversations with others, but it's tough to parse what's rumors and what might not be.
Okay. I think at this point it's a consideration of like going in and dying would suck. But he's not quite right in his heart with what he is. And dying may not be so bad. After all, he's died once already. What's another time?
A sort of almost like the opposite of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I go, and if I die, then whatever. And if I don't die, then I have all this information to bring back, so it's fine.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if he does die, it's like not only is it not so bad because he's seen death and he's kind of like he's curious to investigate it more, but also ethically speaking, being a Dampier as he is, dying and ridding the world of himself might not be so bad. So yeah, exactly. The opposite of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Cool. So, after your couple days of research, your master approaches you again, and he asks, "Well, have you come to a decision?"
Yes, sir. I think it would be best to investigate the Hollow. I will need to secure help and funding. I trust, considering that you said you'll employ me in such manners, that you'll assist me there. Because after all, I am I am no adventurer.
I will. Yes. I will make sure that you get to the Hollow safe and sound, at the very least. And from there, I am sure you'll be able to find your way around. And he has a very, that same wide, calculated grin on his face, that you recognize. And he says, "All right, then without further ado, as promised, let's get you some training. You need to be able to handle your newfound body, and I'm sure it will come as quite a tool in your adventures."
So, what, do you want me to start working out, sir?
No, I'm sure you've noticed at this point strange goings-ons around you. The glass that shattered in your room.
How do you know about that? Was it you
Well,
that shattered it, sir?
no, it was not me, it was you. He opens his pocket and takes out another sort of, this time it is a small sort of journal, and floats it over to you, and it, assuming you reach out for it, lands sort of softly into your hands. This is a lot of how I've learned to control my own powers. give this a look over, and starting tomorrow for the next 2 weeks, while I gather supplies for your adventure and your departure, I will be teaching you how to harness the power of the mind.
And you think I could do this just because I'm not dead?
No, it is something that I know you can do. And with that, he walks away again.
Wolfram will go find a place to read it. Outside, alone. Perhaps in one of the gardens. Finding a stone bench.
You start to read information about what it means to be a psychic. To be able to control the environment around you with calculated focus, determining an intended outcome, aligning thoughts, and manifesting the desired outcome. Small changes in pressure and in energy around certain objects, controlled exclusively with your mind. It is certainly different than a lot of sort of divine and arcane spellcasting that you've come to know over your other researches, especially divine with your studies of Pharasma. And throughout the next 2 weeks, you start to get a novice grasp over these ideas, being able to do things such as levitate needles that you were gifted by your master and sending them outwards with great force, along with depleting the air of energy and causing it to freeze, and the opposite being true as well, producing flame and sending it around as you so please, by simply increasing the speed at which certain particles move. A novice understanding has already gotten you feeling quite powerful, eventually ready to start your adventure to the south.
Sweet.
You are escorted by a fellow member of the university, fairly strong ex-adventurer who, upon hearing not necessarily of your situation, but of a guise that your master has created, you're traveling under a different name as he brings you down to the port of Augustana. And from there, you take a boat down to the south to Martyr's Hollow. And as we reach there, let me move you to...
Whoa.
You arrive down the southern part of this island, and you start to see what was described to you. Small but ever-growing gold rush town. A strong marketplace with busy adventurers and loud merchants sort of yelling over the crowd for people to come buy their wares, or people accepting treasure from adventurers coming up from the depths. You sort of wandering around see that there is a fairly intricate pulley system that has been designed to deposit adventurers down into the first layer, as well as several inns and places of residence around to make sure everybody is housed and home. What would you like to do now that you're here?
Well, we made it, he says to the his companion who's accompanied him this far. How far are you going with me?
This is where I stop. I will leave you here. I was told you would be able to find your way from here.
I was hoping you'd accompany me further.
Well, I was only paid to do so much. And he gives a big smile. It's like, you're a good kid. You'll find your way. There's no worries.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Actually, there's one more thing. And he sort of mumbles to himself as he scrambles through his pockets. Him and his notes. Okay. Here you go. And he pulls up from underneath his armor another crumpled note and hands it to you. And with this, I'll be off.
Should I be expecting notes every time I close my eyes, waking up? Perhaps there's a note in my water skin, in the bottom of my compass. He starts like checking the equipment that's attached to himself.
There may be more hiding amongst your gear if your master had prepped any of it, but I'm sure you'll be quite fine from here. And he gives out another loud, hearty chuckle and turns around and sort of waves you off.
Wolfram gives a slight wave, and his slight smile returns to a blank face. And he opens and examines the note.
In your master's handwriting, you see scrawled, "Look for the woman of the cloth."
That's it? That's the note?
Yep.
That was out loud. Well, yeah, he does it. He looks around right now for the woman of the cloth. Does he see any female wearing cloth? Any females wearing cloth?
Any females wearing cloth?
I am searching for a woman. I know, haha, aren't we all? This one, I need one that wears cloth.
No. You look around and like there are a wide variety of people. It is hard to sort of tell, especially since you've just, you've only had a couple hours probably to sort of take in your surroundings as you've started to settle in. What does Wolfram do now that he's here?
Well, first things first. If my only lead, because hell no, I'm not going into that hole by myself. I've studied enough. I know that it's not safe, and I certainly don't trust my own abilities well enough. First things first, until he finds some protection, he's gonna need a place to stay. So let's go for an inn, preferably one that's not too noticeable or expensive.
Okay. You find an inn that's sort of tucked farther away from the hollow, and it's small, fairly humble. The halfling who works it steps up onto the stool on the other side of the counter and looks you in the eye and says, Welcome. Are you here to stay?
I could be. How much for a room?
2 copper coins a night.
Yeah, I could do that. He fumbles around in his coin purse and pulls out a couple coins and flicks them over. They kind of travel in a straight line. He's still trying to get control of his levitation. But hopefully not noticeable enough that she'd notice it.
Mm-hmm. She gets a hold of them and smiles and says, I will warn you that we only provide rooms. No extras on top of that as far as like food or anything like that goes. You'll have to get that from the marketplace, but I hope you enjoy your stay here.
Thank you. And with that, he turns around to leave, keeping all his gear on him just in case. Not like it weighs much. I mean, mechanically, he's sitting at 9 light, not even a bulk. Bro's not wearing anything.
Cool. Do you just start to sort of wander the town and take in the sights from here?
Yeah, is there any sort of... I'd like to see what Nanovsky means by woman of the cloth. Is that some sort of figure or deity, or maybe like a political figure in town or something like that? How could I spend some time to investigate that?
I mean, mostly just sort of looking around town, seeing if like anything clicks for you. I wouldn't make you sort of roll for this, as this is mostly RP stuff
Okay.
at this point. I'll say as you're walking around, you notice that there's several sort of people in the streets, which aren't merchants, but they're stopping adventurers and calling out to them, and you realize that they're sort of these guilds which help sponsor adventurers to go down into the hollow. But
Naturally.
as you're walking, you notice a blonde elf in sort of gothic clothing calling around and trying to get the attention of a couple adventurers who sort of blow her off as one of the other sort of guild recruiters around, and she locks eyes with you and
You and your blonde
smiles.
elves.
She locks eyes with you and gives you a smile and waves at you and says, "Hello, are you looking to go down into the hollow?"
He nods, but doesn't give too much. What is she wearing? What is she wearing?
I will show you.
Is this cloth? Oh, because if it's just another cute, if it's just another like generic handler, then he's probably not going to pay too much attention to not like that way they don't keep talking to him.
Mm-hmm. She is fairly gaudy, as the sort of dress she's wearing is this sort of black gothic dress with a emerald like endowed hairpiece. And you recognize some of the features on her clothes as her dress sort of goes down into these spiral patterns.
He starts to pay more attention and be less closed off. So, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Are you looking to go down into the hollow?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Do you have any questions about the hollow? Or any way that I can help?
You can help? I don't know.
Sorry.
Sorry, miss, I don't know who you are, so I don't know how you can help.
Sorry. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. It's been a long week, and she holds out one of her hands and says, "Lilith Orphine, a pleasure to meet you."
Wolfram von Mortse. Pleasure.
She smiles as she shakes your hand, and let's go somewhere more comfortable if you would like to chat. I can take you to my place of work.
He will follow.
And
Is this the lady in cloth?
Lady of the Cloth.
Of the cloth.
Yeah. You have your suspicions. It's a little hard to say, but you enter a building with a sign above which says Mortician's Aid. Upon walking into the building, you notice sort of skulls adorning the shelves upon along with sort of banners depicting spirals and other sort of adornments. And without needing to roll a recall knowledge check, you notice that a lot of the sort of paraphernalia here is very similar to what would be at the church you used to live at.
He was at first, posture quite upright, but kind of relaxes a little bit upon seeing the atmosphere here.
She sits on the other side of a desk in this fairly small house or fairly small building, and she motions to the other side of the desk where she has pulled out a chair. "Come, sit."
He takes a seat and says, "So do you just bring in anybody off the street who's happens to have a spiral symbol on them?"
Well, not necessarily. I will say I was pleased to see the shell around your neck. Are you also a follower of the Lady of Graves?
I am indeed, or as close as could be considered.
Her smile becomes a bit wider and a bit less customer service and a bit more genuine as she says, I'm glad to see it. I haven't seen a lot of followers as of late.
Well, the gods have been less and less popular as of late, so I'm sure there's no correlation there.
Hopefully not. She says, so you're looking to go down into the hollow, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is this
Although I'm
for research? For sorry, I don't mean
Is
to
it that
pry.
obvious? He says,
Well,
glancing down, like pulls up one of his, the side of his cloak and like looks inside.
um, no. I mean, you'd simply getting ahead of myself. Simply wondering what your intentions are. I've had several people try to go it alone.
Oh, no. How old is she up here?
Um,
Is this a miss or a ma'am moment?
if she was human, you would know that this would probably be like a miss moment. But knowing how elves age, this is certainly a ma'am moment.
Okay, cool. No, ma'am. I would not be. You would not catch me being so foolish as to go it alone. That's why I'm here, as far as I understand.
Yep. And she just sort of gestures to the room itself. Here at the Mortician's Aid, we plan to help adventurers going down into the hollow and are hoping to form a party that will uncover some of the secrets of the place. Her sort of smile drops just a little bit. She says, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Do you know of the dangers of the hollow?
Aside from the other adventurers,
Yes.
then no, ma'am.
Okay, then first I will start with on top of other adventurers, several hazards lie deep below, more than likely life-threatening, even just on these sort of surface levels that you can view from the city. Several creatures lie below that are more than willing to take your life. On top of that, there is a great curse cast upon the hollow. A curse which has stopped many an adventurer from coming back. And she takes out a map and motions to the inner ring with the sort of cloudy sea in the center. And she says, anybody who makes it past this point does not come back to the surface.
Huh. And we know this because they die?
Well, they're able to come back onto this side of the cloud barrier itself, but the farther down you go, the harder it is to return. It seems rising out of the hollow a certain distance takes a toll on the body. We've seen quite a few adventurers at this point try and make their way back and perish on their way back from the barrier.
Does this apply to the creatures themselves as well?
She puts her finger to her chin and sort of tilts her head a little bit. It's a mixed bag. We've seen some signs of creatures being affected by this, and we've seen other accounts of them simply being able to meander about as they so please. It's hard to tell. However, the reason why I bring this up is to let you know that this very well could be a one-way journey.
Thank you for letting me know. I'm gonna be honest, ma'am. I'm quite prepared to die here. Not that it's anything I'm looking forward to, but I don't believe it would be the worst option available to me. Not that I'm any sort of criminal or anything. Just
She tilts her head at that, and, well, I'm sure everybody has their reasons. That sort of is the ongoing theme around the Hollow. There's several people who are willing to give their lives for what lies within, and there are several who aren't, and that's usually the people you see scavenging the first layer here, which is why we know at least a decent amount of this first layer. I'm sure you've seen somewhat sickly adventurers walking about the town. I'm not sure how long you've been here, but it seems to be something that they can't shake even once they're to the surface.
I understand.
I'm surprised someone as studious as yourself isn't asking any more questions.
Well, I assumed this would not be the last time we speak. Am I assuming wrong, ma'am?
Taken aback slightly, she gives a chuckle. Well, I suppose you're right in that. I mean, first of all, if you did decide you wanted to join in, then it would be a little bit before I would send you down in the first place, and otherwise, there is a way we have to communicate. And reaches down into a drawer coming off of the desk, and she takes out a black leather bound journal and places it on the table. On the front of it you can see a skull, and listed below it you can see the Mortician's journal. She opens the journal and you see the sort of light blue glow coming off of the pages as she flips through it, and she says, "This is how we plan on extracting information from down below. Anything written in here is transferred to its sister copies exactly as written."
How does it not run out of paper?
Well, it's she sort of turns the book to you and shows as she sort of flips the pages that the amount of pages on like either side doesn't really change. It's an artifact that was created somewhere around 3 years ago. It was made by myself and was sort of a foretelling of the events here and what I was meant to do. Any other way that we've tried to get information out of Martyr's Hollow has sort of failed. We've tried balloons, we've tried relaying the information back, but that proved to be sort of too dangerous and too strenuous on the people involved, especially as they started to get deeper.
Is there a specific reason you're interested in this knowledge? Or something you're looking for, ma'am? It seems like a lot of trouble to go through if you don't have a motive.
She smiles and says, "Well, a lot of adventurers are giving their lives going down into the Hollow without any rhyme or reason to how they're doing it, accidentally going too far, not being able to come back, or simply losing their lives to what lies around the Hollow. This place has been swarmed with people wanting to uncover its secrets with reckless abandon, and if we can find some way to lighten the load, then a lot of lives will be saved." And you notice...
Very kind of you.
You would notice as she's sort of explaining this, her stumble a little bit as she's
Can I sense
talking?
motive?
Yes, you may.
Which I was gonna do before you said anything, for the record.
Yeah.
Because, even if she was telling the truth and I succeed, then I would believe that anyway. So, if she's being
you
genuine.
you notice that while she is being genuine about what she's saying, you can tell there's something more to it. Not nefarious, but there is more that she's letting on to.
Okay. Seems like a very kind thing for you to do. And as a fellow follower, I would like to support you in that, if I may.
She beams at that and says, "Wonderful, very truly wonderful. If that is the case, then if you wouldn't mind," and she turns the journal towards you and flips towards the end of it, where you see her flip past a couple of other entries. Most of the pages have been blank that she's been flipping through, but as she gets towards the theoretical back of it and points to it and says, "This isn't soul binding or anything of the sort, of course. If you decide you want to back out at any sort of time, you can. However, it is a tradition of sorts that we're trying to start, that if you would be so kind as to write your motivation for going down into the hollow here, so if you are to perish, then any other who is traveling with you can fulfill your purpose."
Very ominous.
Show this.
Whoa.
And if you would like to, you can edit it by moving over. If you see motivations and sort of the middle of the page, you can scroll over that, or the page itself, and a edit button will appear in the top right. And you can click on that edit button and you can put in your entry.
Very cool. Okay, what would he write?
It can be short. Some people have kept it quite short, but meaningful.
Sure. Done. I wrote that the power of the Lady of Graves herself has gone missing, and with it, her influence over both life and death wanes. The danger in such a reality is unquantifiable. Therefore I, Wolfram von Mortse, hereby venture into the depths of the Martyr's Hollow to uncover what I might of the truth of Phrasma's story, and thereby restore the natural order to her dominion.
Perfect. And with that, Lilith takes the journal back, seeing that you have finished, closes it, and smiles with it in her hands. "Well, with that, I will come and get you when the party is fully gathered. We are still looking for one other at this point in time. And then with that, we will send you all down. So it should only be a couple days' time."
If only that man had come with me. Perfect. Then, ma'am, I suppose that would be a good time. It would be a good idea to hold our exposition questions until then.
Yes, I mean, if you have any other questions, you may ask them now.
No, I'm quite exposited out. Thank you.